Okay, this is Matgen110. We're looking at the final review, and this is the last video I'm making. Star Wars trivia. Lightsaber was originally going to be carried by all of the stormtroopers, but George Lucas decided to switch it up and make it just a Jedi Knight, bad guy Jedi Sith thing, to be a little more like King Arthur and the Sword of Power. So here, let me turn on the lights so you can see the board. Here, I'll show you on the costume. This is action figure, but on the actual costume they had a tube on the back of all the stormtrooper outfits that was supposed to hold, you know, a lightsaber, because in the movies, if you haven't seen the movies, it's just the hilt, and then you click the button, and then this 3.5-foot laser comes up, and you can cut things and stuff. And so they kept it on the costume, but they changed it in the script where stormtroopers didn't get to have lightsabers. So that is the last of the Star Wars trivia you will have to listen to. Let's take a look at Matgen110. We're looking at the final review. No extra fluff in this one. There's 20 problems on the review, 20 problems on the test. So this is what the test will look like. Different numbers. Don't use any of the same numbers. And so let's get into it here. We've got order of operations. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add, subtract. So we got parentheses. We're going to multiply inside there first. So that is 3 plus 20. Then we look at this like it's a brand new problem. We have parentheses again. So -4 times 8 plus 2 times 23. Now multiply and multiply. We can do those simultaneously. So we got -32 plus 46. And then we're down to just add. So combine -32 and positive 46. That's positive 14. And so that's the answer for that one. This one throws a lot of students off. It's much easier than that one. It's less tedious. But the negative is on the 5, so don't forget that. We get 3x minus 5x minus 30. So everybody gets the minus on the 5x because there's a minus there, but a lot of people forget negative times a positive is a negative. So be careful there, and then combine like terms. And then that's it. That's where the show stops. So -2x minus 30 is your answer. And lots of students go equals 0 and move it over and divide and tell me 15, -15. Don't do that. There isn't. It's not an equation. It's just an expression. We're simplifying it, and so you'll have an x and a number. All right. This one is an equation. So this one we're going to solve out. So we're going to isolate the variable. We're going to get all the x's to the left side. So we're going to subtract 2x from both sides of the equation. That gets rid of it there. This becomes 3x. Plus 4 equals -11. Again, don't forget the negative sign. That's a very common mistake. Isolate the variable, so we got x all by itself, so that means subtract 4 from both sides of the equation. So that 4 goes away. 3x is equal to -15, and then divide by 3. Remember to run it through your calculator if you tend to mess up on combining negatives and dividing a negative by a positive. You can double check it with your calculator. All right. So -5. And you can actually check your work. -25 plus 4 is -21, and -10 and -11 is -21. All right, number 4, I didn't write anything down because it's a word problem. The sum of 2 consecutive integers is 157. So look, the first number then we're going to call x is number 1. Or the first number. X plus 1 then is the consecutive number, the one right next to it on the number line. Consecutive. So then the sum, x plus 1 is equal to 157. And so then now it becomes a pretty easy equation. 2x plus 1 equals 157. Isolate the variable by subtracting 1 from both sides of the equation. Right? And divide by 2. X is equal to, what is that, 78? And so that's one of them. And then the one right next to it on the number line is 79. So 78 and 79. All right, find the slope. That's just use this equation, the change in y over the change in x. So that would be equal to, here, we'll just do it over. 6 minus 2 over -1 minus 4. And so we're looking at 6 minus 2 is 4, -1 and -4 is -5. And that's it. You can just leave it like that. That's fine. If you want to put the negative in front of the fraction, make it -4/5 or -4/5, that's fine. But you can just leave it 4 over -5 and we're done. All right. This one is maybe the easiest one in the test. And I had students last semester leave it blank. Oh, don't leave it blank. Look. Y equals mx plus b. This is what you're using. They gave you m. They gave you b. Just put them in and you're done. It's just 4x plus 5. I think because it was that easy and you didn't have to do any work, students got it wrong. A bunch of students did a bunch of stuff they didn't need to do. And that one's super easy. Just in and done. On to the next one. All right. Okay, let's look at the next page. So number 7 is -4x to the third, y to the fifth, all raised to the second power. And so there is a tricky part of this one. It is -4 to the first power. X to the third, y to the fifth squared. And when you have a power raised to a power, you multiply. So 1 times 2 is 2. And 6 and 10. So everybody usually gets the 6 and the 10, no problem, but they mess this up. Don't mess this up. -4 times -4 is positive 16. X6, Y 10. So that's a tricky one. Don't get tripped up on that one. 8, subtract 4x squared minus 3x minus 6 minus 7x squared plus 6x plus 1. So if you want, you could do this trick. You're going to distribute a negative to each one of those, but you can do it like vertically. So this is already written for you. Right underneath, you can go -7x squared minus 6x minus 1. Like that becomes a minus, that becomes a minus, that becomes a minus, to the minus. And now we just kind of like add straight down. So 4 and -7 is -3x squared. -3 and -6 is -9x. -6 and -1 is -7. And we're done. That's it. Done. So you can kind of do it like the little vertical add technique if you want to. I think it's it makes it a little easier. You don't have to write it out again anyway. So look, 2x plus 9 times 3x minus 5. We just do either FOIL, first order and last, or the distributive property twice. Look, it's this times both of those, so that's 6x squared. Don't forget the x squared. That's usually the common error. 2x times -5, -10x, plus 27x, minus 45. And then now we combine up the like terms, and then we're done. So it's a trinomial, 6x squared plus 17x minus 45. All right. Next one, it looks difficult, but don't be fooled. It's not as hard as it looks. If you take a look at 10, it's 6x minus 2y equals 10. and 5x plus 2y equals 1. And it says solve any way you want. So we could solve it graphically. Don't do it graphically. You could solve it with the addition method. You could solve it with substitution. I would say this is screaming the addition method, because look, we've got minus 2y there and plus 2y there. If I just add these straight down, those are going to cancel away. 11x equals 11. And voila. Divide both sides by 11 and x equals 1. We found one of our answers. That's the one part. We have to still find the other one, and we're going to substitute that into either equation. Doesn't matter which. I'll put it in the top one. 6 times 1 minus 2y equals 10. So we got 6 minus 2y equals 10. And now we're back to week 3, solving two-step equations. So isolate the variable. So that means subtract 6 from both sides of the equation. That goes away. We get negative 2y equals 4. And divide by negative 2. And y is equal to negative 2. So there's our other 1, negative 2. All right. And then the last one on this page, factor completely x squared minus 12x plus 20. So factoring is when you take a second degree trinomial here, and we're going to kind of unfoil factor or break it down into a first degree binomial times a first degree binomial. So we do our list of suspects. It multiplies to be 20, but it has to add up to be negative 12. So when I look at 20, I'm going to go negative, negative, negative 1, negative 20. Because it's got to multiply to be a positive, but add to be a negative. The only way that can happen is if they're both negative answers. So that didn't do it. That's negative 21. Negative 4, negative 5. Nope, that's negative 9. Oh, look, 20 has 2 in it, right? So negative 2, negative 10. There it is. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. So x minus 2, x minus 10. All right. X minus 2, x minus 10. And that's it. We're done for that. So on to the next page. We're going to do solving. Oh, there's a little bit of fraction work in there. I know we're not wild about fractions. Okay, so number 12 is x minus 1 quantity squared equals 49. And they want us to use the square root property. So what that means is I want to get rid of this squared. And so the way to get rid of that squared is with a square root. But when it's an even rooted thing like that, you have to look at both the positive and the negative version. So you throw that little plus or minus in front of there. So now look, the square root of x minus 1 squared, the square root and the squared kind of wipe each other out. We just have x minus 1. Plus or minus the square root of 49. We want to isolate the variables, so we add 1. Sneak it in front. Don't put it after. Put it in front. Now, if this were an uglier number, if that was like 41, we would just be done. We'd just say 1 plus or minus the square root of 41 and circle our answer and go on. It's not, though. It's a perfect square, which means we can get that out of the square root. And now it's a regular number, and that means I can put it with the 1. When it was a square root number, I couldn't put it with the 1. But now I got a couple more steps. So we like ugly numbers in the square roots. We don't like these pretty perfect ones. 8 and negative 6. And that's our two answers. All right. 13. Ooh, it looks like this, where we got 3x minus 1 over 5x. I guess it's not horrible. It could be worse. So we need the LCD between 5x and x. So if you think about that, 5x is 5 times x. X is just plain old x. When you're finding the LCD, you take what they have in common, which is an x in this case, and then you take the leftovers, which is a 5. So 5x is the LCD. So that means I want a 5x there, and I want a 5x there. This one I already got what I want. It's already 5x, so I just rewrite the top. This one, I need it to be a 5x, but it's only a 1x. So I have to multiply top and bottom by the same number. That's 5. So that's 15. So essentially, 5 over 5 is a fancy 1. Remember, when I multiply 1 by anything, I get the same thing out. And so 3 over x is equivalent to 15 over 5x. But we needed it for that 5x, so we could go like this. And then combine like terms on the top and 5x on the bottom. And then that's it. So that's our answer. But it's a fraction. I know we're never wild about fractions. So here, let's do the board. Okay, so now we got, what do we have going on now? The distance formula, and it'll be right there on the test, but it's open notes, so you could have it right there on your scratch paper too. Right. So we put in, you still have to know where everything goes. You still have to know how to use your calculator. You still have to know a lot of stuff. So even though it's open notes. All right. So what does this look like? This means I do 5 minus 2 quantity squared plus 7 minus 6 quantity squared. So that is 3 squared plus 1 squared. 3 times 3, be careful. 3 times 3 is 9. I can't tell you how many people tell me 6. And 1 times 1 is 1. And I can't tell you how many people tell me 2. So be careful not to mess those up. So that's the square root of 10. And then on your calculator, depending on the calculator, you either type in 10 and hit the square root button. It'll kick out the answer. Or you'll hit second squared on the blue calculators. And that'll put up a square root like that. And you put in 10 and parenthesis and hit enter. And it'll kick out 3.16227766. And they want it 2 decimal places. So 3.16 is good enough. All right. 15, it should take you a second. The square root of 49y squared is just 7y, and you're done. That's it. No work. This 7 times 7 is 49. Y times y is y squared. So it's just 7y. Don't put a square root on it. Don't do anything else. Just 7y. 16, the square root of 12 plus the square root of 75. This one is a little harder because now you got to go perfects and leftovers. Perfects 4, leftover 3. It's 2 square roots of 3. Plus perfects 25, leftover 3. That's 5 square roots of 3. And now you treat the square root of 3 like how you treated variables. If I had 2x plus 5x, you'd have 7x. If you have 2 square roots of 3 plus 5 square roots of 3, you have 7 square roots of 3. All right. So that one is a little trickier. You could do it a different way too. You could do it like prison break style, where you do 12. You break it down into its prime factorization. 2 times 2 times 3 plus 75. 3 times 5 times 5. And then now look, groups of 2 to get out of prison, but only 1 lives. That one's stuck. Groups of 2 to get out of prison, only 1 lives. That one's stuck. And you got 2 square roots of 3 plus 5 square roots of 3. You got 7 square roots of 3. So if you prefer to do it that way instead of perfects and leftovers, that's fine. Be careful. The perfects and leftovers, common error is people think of anything that multiplies to be 12, like 6 and 2, and they put those down, but neither one of those are perfect, so nobody would get out. So you got to pick your numbers carefully. It's got to be a perfect, and then whatever you multiply by that perfect to get that number. All right? That's why a lot of people like that method where you just break it down. All right? So now this last page is 1 easy, 2 easy, and then 2 hard. So half of it's pretty easy, half of it's pretty difficult. Let's take a look. And that will end our notes for the semester. All right, so 17 is Pythagorean's theorem. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. And they have a pretty picture there for you. So 16 squared plus b squared is equal to 20 squared. So that is 256 plus b squared is equal to 400. You subtract the 256 from both sides. B squared is equal to 144. We do the square root, plus or minus, right? So b is equal to plus or minus the square root of 144. Only it's a length. It's a length on a triangle, so it can't be a negative. So negative is out. So it's just the square root of 144, which happens to be a perfect, which is 12. All right. 18 is also not that bad because it's already factored for you. So remember this little tidbit. When I multiply 0 by anything, I get 0. But also, if I have 0 and things are being multiplied, the only way to get there is if either this is 0 or this is 0. So that's all you're doing on this problem. You're setting that equal to 0, setting that equal to 0, and now you solve. So add 4. X is equal to 4. Add 1. And divide by 2. X is equal to 1/2 or 0.5. I don't care if you give me a decimal. Either one. All right. 19, it's a little more tedious. And then 20 is factor and solve. So 20, we're going to kind of do what we did right here. Let me put 20 right here. And so here, we'll do 19 over here. So we got x squared minus 3x minus 8 equals 0. So this is not factorable. There's nothing that multiplies to be negative 8 that'll add up to be negative 3. So in order to solve this, the second degree equation, the fundamental theorem says if I give you a second degree, you give me 2 solutions. And so look, there's a 1 there. So that's 1 for A. That's negative 3 for B. That's negative 8 for C. And now you go into this complicated formula. It's called the quadratic formula. All over 2A. Where you're going to take these 3 numbers and populate that equation. So the opposite of negative 3 plus or minus the square root negative 3 squared minus 4 times A times C all over 2A. So 2 negatives in a row make a positive. Negative times a negative is a positive. A negative times a positive times a negative is a positive. 2. Oh, that's a really sloppy 9. All right. So now look. I add that up. All over 2. And that's it. We like ugly square roots. I'm glad that wasn't like 49 or 36. If it was 36, we'd have another 4 steps to do, because then we'd have to make it into 6, and then we'd have to do 3 plus 6 and divide that by 2, and we'd have to do 3 minus 6 and divide that by 2. But when it's ugly, like 41, you get to just stop right there. 3 plus or minus the square root of 41, all over 2. You're done. All right? And that's how it's going to work out on the test. It's going to be an ugly one like that. And then the last one, 5x squared minus 15x equals 0. Now this time, unlike this one, 18 it was already factored for you, and we just had to set them equal to 0. This one you have to factor yourself. And it's a tricky factoring problem because there's only 2 things. And it's not perfect squares. These aren't difference of perfect squares. So you have to find the greatest common factor. GCF is 5x. And we write that out front. We do an empty set of parentheses. And we divide everything by whatever we wrote out front. So 5x squared divided by 5x. The 5's cancel. One of the x's cancel. The x's cancel. 3. And now there should be 2 solutions. 5x equals 0. X minus 3 equals 0. So this is a little tricky, right? We divide by 5. X is equal to 0. If you take 0 divided by 5, even in calculator, it'll be 0. And add 3. X is equal to 3. So 0 and 3 will work if you put those back into the original. And that is the whole thing. That's the whole review. I hope everybody's staying safe. Oh, look, we did the stormtrooper thing. This is why. Dun, 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 dun. It's my t-shirt where there's a stormtrooper writing on the board 100 times. Those were the droids we're looking for, and it's got a picture of C-3PO. and R2D2. So I hope you have a wonderful summer. Study, study, study for the final. I need you all to do really good on the final.